The morning had been spent peeling apples by hand on the porch. Sunlight dappled through the thick canopy of cedar and fir trees. Little birds flitted, and the breeze was fresh and gentle. These apples were gifted by a woman from town in exchange for a card reading, and would be made into pies, the skins for vinegar, the cores brewed into cider, and the seeds kept for spell work. As she carefully turned an apple in her hands, thinly slicing off the peel in a long, coiling strip, she heard the sound of footsteps on the path approaching her home. It was a friend she hadn't seen for many months, and while he carried a basket spilling over with tablecloths and breads, cheese and wine, and he sported casual, comfortable dress, he seemed harried, preoccupied, and certainly had a mission in his step. Greetings were called out, the basket set close to her feet, but no time was wasted in getting to the point of his visit. He was looking to build a cabin on a parcel of land recently acquired. He knew the importance of proper introductions, permissions, and the placement of new buildings, and hoped she would intercede on his behalf before work could begin. As he spoke the last word of his request, a long slice of apple peel fell to the floor, landing perfectly coiled, save for a tail pointing down the path from whence he came. She read this as a positive indicator, and so agreed to follow him out to his desired homestead, but not until after he spread the full contents of his basket on the moss for a light brunch under the trees. Satiated, she then picked up her basket and wandered through her cottage, gathering her trusted tools for the job: an elkskin rattle, a small tin of dried herbs, flowers and resin, some matches in a box, an oyster shell, her medicine bundle, and a small vial of water infused with devil's club and cedar. As a last thought, she pulled her cloak down off its hook and tucked it under her arm before they began their journey on foot through the woods. The sun was high in the sky by the time they arrived, and so she set straight to the matter at hand. After a look at the proposed building site and a listen to all of his dreams for a future there, where he thought a barn might later go, and the sort of garden he wanted, how he longed for a family, and to become an old man smoking a pipe and telling stories around a fire, she felt she had all she needed from him to begin, took her leave, and meandered the property, getting a feel now for the place itself. There were bright, airy parts, and dank, dark spots, not just in light, but in energy, welcoming places, stale nooks, and foreboding areas. She settled into a place with some sheltering privacy, flat ground to lay out her tools, and a calm, soft feel. First, some tree resin, dried rosemary, and juniper was lit in the oyster shell. Its smoke gently wafted over the waiting tools and washed over her body. Dried flowers were laid on the ground as an offering gift, along with a few strands of her hair for the land to know her better by. 3 deep breaths and a fast-paced rattle shaking next to her ear was all she needed to immerse herself into the unseen realm that coexists with the commonly seen. Immediately, an old woman seemingly made up of the forest floor itself rose in front of her. Without words, both the old woman's curiosity as well as her stern caution were instantly conveyed. Introductions proceeded formally, first by giving her name, her mother's name, her mother's mother's name, and on as far as she could remember. She also pushed forward her medicine bundle, holding stones from the land she was born on, the land she lives on, and all the lands she holds relationship with. The old woman of the forest, in return, stood stock still, while the landscape around her shifted through its evolution as a living time-lapse. Once an ocean, once heaving land, once lush with towering ferns and horsetail, once prowled by creatures unrecognized. Trees grew up and fell, stones wore down to pebbles. Days and nights passed almost imperceptibly fast. All manner of weather came and went, came and went. It was dizzying and discombobulating and entirely fascinating and incredibly profound. To keep her head from reeling and spinning, she fixed her eyes on the old woman standing so still. There was a gradual slowing as time around them synchronized into present moment and began to tick at the pace she was accustomed to. Introduction complete. While her outer body sat gently rocking back and forth, voice chanting low repeating tones, shaking her rattle furiously next to her ear, her spirit body walked the grounds telling of her friend, the sort of man he was, his building plans, and his hopes to live a long and happy life there. When she had finished her portrayal, the old woman of the forest handed her a small bowl full of water. She peered in to see a scene form as the surface became glass still. It was a vision of the man building his cabin, only the door was facing south instead of west, and a large stone sat snug against the foundation. It was a stone her friend intended to move to make way for building over. A breeze rippled across the surface of the water, and a new scene appeared. This time, she saw her friend walking the perimeter of the land he would be caring for. Laid in each of the four corners was a flat stone on which he made offerings from his garden, poured libations over, and in one corner placed the bones of creatures eaten, killed, or who otherwise meet their demise, both those wild as well as those within his care. It all seemed rather agreeable and quite favorable. Not everyone receives permission to go ahead, and very often negotiations draw long until a workable relationship can be established. Within this unseen realm, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a blue robin's egg, warm and full of life potential, to offer as a gift of gratitude to the old woman. It was accepted into an apron woven of mycelium, usnea, bark fibers, and various lichen. With that, the woman merged back into the forest floor. All that was left now was her rattle shaking loud in her ear, a body tired from rocking, and a voice hoarse from chanting.